1958, Mashhad, Iran. On the street corners, with the smell of ink staining your fingers, you're nothing more than a 30-second warning, an invisible shadow. 30 years later, you are an absolute myth ruling across continents. But this power will imprison you in a golden cage until 2026, when an algorithm launched from 7,000 miles away ends your legend. Get ready, because this is not your story. This is the story of a machine that never stops. Level 1. The Street Operative, Mashhad, Iran, 1958. You're 19 years old, a seminary student by day, but your real education happens on street corners. The Shah's regime controls everything. Savak, the secret police, monitors mosques and disappears dissidents. You're part of an underground network. Your job, distribution. You carry pamphlets where the smell of old printing press ink stains your fingers. You watch for the creak of polished black leather jackets and the click of shoes on pavement. When you spot them, you signal, a cough, a hand gesture, giving the network 30 seconds to scatter. You're not a fighter, you're infrastructure. Silence is survival. Invisibility is power. Level 2, the underground coordinator. You're 24. You've been moving messages for 5 years, never caught. Now, you're promoted to logistics. You coordinate safe houses and manage document smuggling between cities. You know which border guards take bribes and which train routes are monitored. You meet in basements using coded language. The books have arrived means weapons. The wedding is postponed means abort the operation. Your student identity is your shield. Soldiers see you as just a kid. Failure has consequences, but you don't fail. Level 3, the forged reputation. You're arrested. In even prison, they want names. They want networks, but you give them nothing. They apply pressure, isolation, physical coercion, but you prepared for this, mentally. You already know the truth. Hope is what breaks people, so you expect nothing. 3 years pass. When you are finally released in 1967, everything has changed. Word spreads quickly, you didn't break. Silence, under torture, becomes currency. And just like that, you became rich. Now you are different. A tested operational asset brought into the inner circles where the real power sits and strategic decisions are made. Level 4, the revolutionary strategist. You're 39. The Shah is losing control, but you're not in the streets, shouting slogans with the crowds. You're in coordination meetings, quietly making lists. You decide which military units will defect and which buildings must be seized first. Then it happens. The Shah flees in 1979, and in Mashhad, you manage the transition. You decide who receives authority and who becomes a liability that must be removed. You understand something most people never will. Violence is a language. One public elimination becomes a message broadcast to thousands. You're not just building a movement, you're engineering a state apparatus. Level 5, the institutional architect. You're 42. The revolution has succeeded. You become president, but your real power lies somewhere else. Inside the Revolutionary Guards and the intelligence apparatus. Then the war begins. Saddam believes Iran is weak, but you mobilize entire societal structures, factories, institutions, young men, ideology. Everything becomes part of the machine. Commanders who fail are replaced without hesitation, without sentimentality. At the same time, you build something deeper. Parallel power structures, an economic empire of construction, energy, and state-backed firms designed to bypass sanctions and generate revenue beyond the reach of normal state oversight. By 1988, the structure is complete. You didn't just protect the revolution, you architected a regime, one that answers to only one thing: power. Level 6, the supreme authority. The Grand Ayatollah dies, and then the decision is made. They choose you as the successor. You're 50 now, and suddenly, you are the supreme leader, the Vali-e-Faqih. Your authority is written into the Constitution, but in reality, it is absolute. Presidents rise, presidents fall, administrations come and disappear, but you remain. You decide who is allowed to run for office and who will quietly disappear from the game of power, all through layers of intermediaries, systems designed so the hand is never seen. Like a VOR visa cone, you are the lawgiver, the one who stands above all others. Final decisions, final responsibility, finality itself becomes your burden, because at this level, there's no higher authority, no appeal, no reversal. You are no longer just a man. You are mythology now. Level 7, the regional operator. You're 65 now. Your influence stretches across continents through strategic depth and a vast network of proxies. Hezbollah, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, each one moving like pieces on your Middle East chessboard. But power at this scale creates something unexpected. A golden cage. You live behind walls you haven't truly left in decades. You haven't walked through a crowded bazaar. You haven't sat quietly in a cafe. Not for years. Every movement calculated, every appearance controlled. because the price of control was freedom. You traded one for the other. Now you sit at the center of the system. You see everything, but in the real world, no one sees you. Level 8, the inevitable end, February 28, 2026. You're 86. For nearly 40 years, you have been the sole spider at the center of the web. You survived the Shah's dungeons, the fires of the 1979 revolution, and dozens of assassination attempts. Over time, you began to believe something dangerous, that you were a ghost, untouched by history. But mythology cannot compete with the laws of physics. 7,000 miles away, inside a dark room at Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, a decision has already been authorized. This is not a battlefield. This is an algorithm, high above the world, in the pitch-black stratosphere. The purest fear of American engineering enters your airspace. The B-2 Spirit, $2 billion of radar-absorbing, silent death. It doesn't fly like a normal aircraft. It glides like an ominous phantom to your most advanced radar systems. It is nothing more than a software glitch, or a vast, empty nothingness. Slowly, silently, it drifts above the Zagros Mountains, invisible and completely indifferent. You sit inside your high-security compound, surrounded by elite guards and layers of electronic shields. But the B-2 does not care about walls. It locks onto a life pattern, identified with millimetric precision, a silent release, no engine roar, no warning. What hangs in the air is not a bomb. It is a surgical scalpel. 1 second, you are the absolute lawgiver. The next second, you are nothing more than a data point inside a system labeled strategic termination. Your mythology could not stop a pattern analysis algorithm, because in this world now, mythology is dead. Technology is the new god. Level 9, The Loop, Tehran, 2026. A 16-year-old boy stands outside a crowded metro station, a cheap phone in his hand. His job is simple. Watch for security forces. The moment he sees them, he sends the signal. 30 seconds. Move, hide, disappear. The boy doesn't know your name. He doesn't know your history. He only knows the system. Then his phone suddenly vibrates. A coded message appears on the screen. The books have arrived. To outsiders, it means nothing. But inside the system, everyone understands. Because the truth is simple. You were never the center of the story. You were just one level inside a structure far larger than any individual. And structures like this do not die with men. They adapt, they reset, they continue, because the machine never stops.